Imagine this. A clear blue sky interrupted by thin white streaks that linger for hours, spreading out like ghostly fingers. To the casual observer, they're just contrails, harmless water vapor trails left behind by high-flying planes. But what if those lines in the sky aren't so innocent? What if they're part of a covert operation, a carefully concealed agenda with implications so vast they affect every living thing on this planet? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most controversial and persistent conspiracy theories of the modern era, chemtrails. For decades, this theory has sparked fierce debate, dividing people into two camps. On one side are the skeptics who claim the trails are nothing more than a byproduct of jet engines. On the other are the believers, who argue that these trails are deliberate chemical releases sprayed into the atmosphere for purposes shrouded in secrecy. Why would someone do this? Well, depending on whom you ask, the reasons range from controlling the weather to mind control, population reduction, or even terraforming the planet for purposes we can only begin to imagine. Wild ideas, right? But here's the thing. This theory isn't just whispered about on fringe internet forums. It's inspired protests, petitions, and even prompted official responses from governments and scientists. So, what is it about chemtrails that gets people so fired up? As you look up at those streaks in the sky, you might wonder, could there really be more to this story? Could governments or shadowy organizations be spraying chemicals for purposes unknown? And if so, why isn't the world up in arms about it? Is it a case of mass ignorance, deliberate suppression, or something even darker, like complicity? Tonight, we'll peel back the layers of the chemtrail phenomenon. We'll explore its origins, the claims made by its most vocal proponents, and the evidence that keeps the theory alive. We'll also consider the alternative explanations and criticisms, but only so you, our listeners, can weigh the facts for yourselves. From the alleged use of weather manipulation as a geopolitical weapon to theories about chemical mind control, we'll delve into every shadowy corner of this mystery. But we won't stop there. We'll also look at the cultural and psychological impact of chemtrails. Why does this theory resonate so strongly with people? What does it reveal about our collective fears and suspicions of authority? And perhaps most intriguingly, we'll explore the more speculative angles, the ones that make even seasoned conspiracy theorists pause and wonder if they've stumbled onto a truth too bizarre to believe. So, buckle up. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or someone who just loves to entertain the idea that the world might not be as it seems, this episode is for you. By the end of it, you'll either dismiss the chemtrail conspiracy as nonsense, or you'll find yourself glancing up at the sky a little differently the next time you step outside. Stay with us. This is Conspiracy Theories and Cover-Ups. To understand the chemtrail conspiracy, we need to rewind the clock and explore the historical, political, and cultural moments that gave birth to this controversial idea. Like many conspiracy theories, the chemtrail phenomenon didn't emerge out of thin air. It has roots in real-world science, government programs, and a growing distrust of authority. Let's start with contrails, the visible trails left by airplanes that are a natural byproduct of jet engines. These streaks form when hot exhaust gases meet the cold, high-altitude air, creating condensation. For decades, contrails were just another part of the aviation landscape, barely noticed by the public. But as aviation expanded in the mid-20th century, so did the presence of these streaks in the sky. And with that expansion came questions that would eventually feed into the chemtrail narrative. The late 20th century was a time of growing public awareness and suspicion about government experiments and secret programs. This era gave us revelations about projects like MKUltra, the CIA's mind control experiments, and Operation Mockingbird, a covert attempt to manipulate the media. These disclosures shattered the public's trust, planting the idea that governments could and would engage in secret, unethical activities if it suited their agenda. One program often cited in connection with chemtrail theories is Operation Popeye, a US military weather modification initiative during the Vietnam War. The goal was simple but audacious: to extend the monsoon season by seeding clouds with silver iodide, making it harder for enemy troops to move supplies. While effective, the operation was eventually exposed and criticized for its ethical implications. But the legacy of Operation Popeye lived on. fueling speculation that weather modification technology might be more advanced and more widely used than the public realized. Another important backdrop to the chemtrail theory is the emergence of geoengineering. As scientists grapple with the realities of climate change, geoengineering, deliberate interventions in Earth's climate systems, has gained attention as a potential tool to mitigate global warming. Techniques like solar radiation management, which involves spraying reflective particles into the atmosphere to cool the planet, are frequently discussed in scientific circles. These discussions, though largely theoretical, have sparked fears that such technologies could already be in use, or could be weaponized for sinister purposes. The cultural climate of the late 1990s and early 2000s also played a significant role. This was the dawn of the Internet age, where information and disinformation spread faster than ever before. Early forums, email chains, and websites became breeding grounds for chemtrail theories, as individuals shared photos of unusual cloud patterns and speculated about their origins. For many, the sheer volume of contrails visible in the sky became a symbol of something unnatural, a stark contrast to the clear skies remembered from their youth. Finally, we can't ignore the broader cultural shift towards questioning authority. From the anti-globalization movement to post-9/11 skepticism about government transparency, people began to see the world through a lens of potential manipulation and deceit. Chemtrails became a powerful symbol of this mistrust, an emblem of hidden agendas unfolding in plain sight. With this historical and cultural context in mind, we can start to piece together why the chemtrail theory resonates so strongly. It's not just about what's in the sky, it's about what it represents: control, secrecy, and a world where the truth is often stranger than fiction. Let's dive into the heart of the chemtrail conspiracy and examine the evidence that believers often present as proof of their claims. These arguments come from a mix of eyewitness accounts, photographic evidence, and documents that, for many, suggest there's more to those streaks in the sky than simple condensation. One of the most cited pieces of evidence is the visual distinction between contrails and so-called chemtrails. Believers argue that contrails dissipate quickly, leaving no trace, while chemtrails linger for hours, spreading into hazy clouds that eventually blanket the sky. Photographs and videos taken by individuals worldwide showcase these lingering trails, often in crisscross patterns or other unnatural formations. For many, the sheer prevalence and persistence of these trails suggest deliberate chemical spraying rather than an incidental byproduct of jet engines. Another key claim involves the chemical composition of these trails. Proponents of the chemtrail theory point to soil and water samples taken near areas with heavy aerial activity. These samples often show elevated levels of aluminum, barium, and strontium, elements that some claim are linked to geoengineering or weather modification efforts. For instance, aluminum is frequently mentioned in discussions of solar radiation management because of its reflective properties. Believers argue that these substances, found in unusual concentrations, are not naturally occurring at such levels and must be falling from the sky. Whistleblower accounts also add fuel to the conspiracy. A notable example is a man named Alan Buckman, a former US Air Force meteorologist. Buckman has publicly stated his belief that some trails in the sky are not contrails, but the result of a secretive geoengineering program. He claims that during his time in the military, he witnessed unusual aerial operations that align with the chemtrail theory. While his statements lack concrete evidence, his credentials give weight to the idea for many believers. Similarly, leaked documents and patents related to geoengineering are often cited as smoking guns. For instance, patents for aerosol delivery systems or devices capable of dispersing particulates into the atmosphere are publicly available, leading some to conclude that these technologies are already in use. Combined with governmental discussions on climate interventions, these documents feed suspicions that chemtrails are a reality, not just a theory. Another compelling argument revolves around health concerns. Chemtrail advocates often cite an increase in respiratory illnesses, allergies, and other health issues, particularly in areas with heavy aerial spraying. For these individuals, the correlation is too strong to ignore. Some even report symptoms like headaches, dizziness, or fatigue after observing intense spraying activity in their region. They believe the chemicals dispersed are affecting human health on a large scale, though these claims remain unverified. Lastly, activists point to the secrecy surrounding military and governmental activities in the sky. Programs like the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HAARP, and the limited transparency about aerial maneuvers amplify suspicions. To believers, the lack of clear answers from authorities feels like a deliberate cover-up, fueling fears that chemtrails are being used for population control, weather manipulation, or even mind control. This mix of visual evidence, scientific claims, whistleblower testimonies, and health concerns forms the core of the chemtrail argument. It's a patchwork of pieces that, when put together, paints a picture of a hidden agenda unfolding above our heads. But what do skeptics have to say about these claims? Critics and experts often approach the chemtrail conspiracy theory with skepticism, pointing to a lack of conclusive evidence and offering scientific explanations for the phenomena that believers find suspicious. From meteorologists to aviation experts and environmental scientists, the consensus among mainstream authorities is that chemtrails are, in fact, contrails, normal condensation trails created by aircraft engines. One of the most common rebuttals focuses on the science behind contrail formation. According to experts, contrails occur when hot, humid exhaust from jet engines meets the cold temperatures at high altitudes, causing water vapor to condense and freeze into tiny ice crystals. These trails can persist and spread depending on atmospheric conditions like humidity and wind. Skeptics argue that the long-lasting and wide-spreading trails cited by believers are entirely consistent with natural contrail behavior under certain weather conditions. Critics also address the claims about unusual levels of aluminum, barium, and strontium in soil and water samples. Scientists argue that these elements are naturally occurring in the environment and can be found in varying concentrations due to local geology. Additionally, they point out that the methods used to collect and analyze these samples by conspiracy theorists are often not standardized or scientifically rigorous, leading to questionable results. For instance, detecting elevated aluminum levels in soil might simply reflect the fact that aluminum is one of the most abundant elements in the Earth's crust, not evidence of aerial spraying. Another challenge to the chemtrail theory is the absence of verifiable documentation or whistleblowers with concrete evidence. While patents and public discussions about geoengineering exist, skeptics argue that these are not proof of active programs. Patents often represent theoretical or experimental technologies rather than operational practices. Furthermore, if such a massive and coordinated operation were underway, it would likely involve thousands of people across various sectors. Skeptics question how such a vast conspiracy could remain completely secret, with no definitive leaks or whistleblowers providing hard evidence. Aviation experts add that the logistics of a chemtrail program would be incredibly complex. The idea of equipping commercial or military aircraft with chemical dispersal systems would require significant modifications to thousands of planes, extensive supply chains for the chemicals, and countless personnel to maintain and operate the equipment. Critics argue that such a large-scale operation would be impossible to execute without detection, especially in an era of ubiquitous smartphones, cameras, and internet connectivity. Critics also address the health concerns often cited by chemtrail believers. While increases in respiratory issues and allergies are real, medical professionals attribute them to factors like air pollution, seasonal allergens, and other environmental changes, rather than secret chemical spraying. They argue that blaming chemtrails diverts attention from more pressing environmental and public health challenges that are well documented. Finally, skeptics suggest that the chemtrail conspiracy may be driven by psychological factors, such as a mistrust of government and institutions, or a desire to find simple explanations for complex phenomena. They point to the human tendency to seek patterns and narratives, even where none exist. In this view, chemtrails offer a compelling story that resonates with broader anxieties about power, control, and the environment, even if it lacks empirical support. While skeptics see the theory as a misunderstanding of science and a product of distrust, it's undeniable that the chemtrail narrative persists. But why does it resonate so strongly with so many people? The chemtrail conspiracy theory carries profound cultural, political, and social implications that extend far beyond the trails in the sky. At its core, this theory taps into a deep-seated distrust of governments, corporations, and global institutions. A distrust that has become increasingly prevalent in an age defined by rapid technological advancements and growing concerns over environmental degradation. One of the most striking aspects of the chemtrail theory is how it embodies a broader fear of unchecked power. For many believers, the notion of a shadowy cabal orchestrating a global geoengineering operation represents a worst-case scenario of governmental overreach and corporate greed. It reflects anxieties about a world where those in control prioritize their interests at the expense of the public's health and well-being. These concerns resonate particularly strongly in communities that have experienced systemic neglect, economic disparities, or environmental exploitation, where trust in authorities has eroded over time. On a cultural level, chemtrails have become a symbol of defiance against official narratives. The internet has allowed people to form communities that challenge traditional gatekeepers of information, such as scientists, journalists, and public officials. Social media platforms have given rise to echo chambers where alternative theories thrive, providing spaces for believers to share observations, analyze patterns, and connect with like-minded individuals. In these circles, chemtrails are more than a conspiracy. They are evidence of hidden truths and a rallying cry for those who feel marginalized by the mainstream. The chemtrail theory also resonates with broader societal concerns about environmental collapse. As climate change becomes an increasingly urgent issue, the idea of geoengineering, whether as a solution or a threat, strikes a chord. For some, chemtrails are seen as a reckless attempt to manipulate nature with potentially catastrophic consequences. This aligns with fears of humanity's hubris in trying to control complex systems we may not fully understand, echoing historical instances where technological progress led to unintended harm. Politically, the chemtrail theory underscores the polarization and erosion of trust that define much of contemporary discourse. It highlights a growing divide between institutions and the public, fueled by a history of government secrecy, scandals, and cover-ups. Events like the NSA surveillance revelations, the mishandling of crises, or corporate malfeasance have contributed to a climate where people are more willing to entertain the possibility of hidden agendas. For many, chemtrails serve as a metaphor for these broader failures, a visible sign of invisible control. Moreover, the theory reflects humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown. The sky, with its vastness and mystery, has always been a source of wonder and speculation. From ancient myths about gods and celestial beings to modern UFO sightings, the idea that something significant could be happening above us taps into a primal curiosity. Chemtrails blend this curiosity with modern anxieties, creating a narrative that feels both plausible and extraordinary. On a social level, the chemtrail community fosters a sense of belonging for those who feel alienated or unheard. By participating in discussions, attending events, and sharing personal experiences, believers forge connections that validate their perspectives and provide emotional support. In this way, chemtrails are not just a theory, but a shared identity that unites individuals across geographic and ideological divides. The cultural, political, and social implications of chemtrails demonstrate the power of conspiracy theories to reflect and amplify societal tensions. They act as mirrors, revealing collective fears, frustrations, and aspirations. But what happens when we look beyond the mainstream and delve into the more speculative and fringe angles of the chemtrail theory? In our next segment, we'll explore some of the unconventional perspectives that add even more layers to this enigmatic conspiracy. Let's take a step further down the rabbit hole and explore some of the more speculative fringe angles tied to the chemtrail theory. These ideas push the boundaries of conventional thinking, blending science fiction with real-world fears, and they add an intriguing layer to the mystery. One of the most fascinating fringe perspectives is the idea that chemtrails are being used to manipulate human consciousness. Proponents of this theory believe that the substances released in these trails are not just about controlling weather or mitigating climate change, they're designed to affect our brains. This could involve the dispersal of mind-altering chemicals or nanotechnology, which, according to some claims, may already be integrated into the chemtrail particles. These substances, they argue, might dull critical thinking, suppress dissent, or even prime the population for control by external forces, be they governmental or extraterrestrial. And yes, extraterrestrials are another major component of the fringe angles surrounding chemtrails. Some theorists posit that these trails are part of a covert alliance between governments and alien beings, with the ultimate aim of terraforming Earth to suit an off-world species. According to this theory, the composition of chemtrails could be altering the atmosphere to create conditions more favorable for these extraterrestrial entities, perhaps higher levels of certain gases or even changes in temperature and radiation levels. It's a scenario that taps into humanity's oldest fears of invasion and colonization, but with a modern, cosmic twist. Then there's the idea of chemtrails as a tool for biological experimentation. This perspective suggests that the trails are being used to test biological agents or genetic modifications on an unsuspecting population. Supporters of this theory often draw parallels to historical instances, such as the Tuskegee syphilis experiments or the spraying of zinc-cadmium sulfide over US cities during the Cold War, arguing that the precedent for unethical experimentation is already well established. They claim chemtrails could be a vehicle for delivering experimental pathogens, vaccines, or even genetic manipulation tools, like CRISPR. One of the more out-there angles is the notion that chemtrails are part of a spiritual or metaphysical agenda. Some believe these trails are designed to interfere with the planet's energy fields, disrupting the natural vibrations that connect humanity to the Earth. This perspective often intersects with New Age beliefs, suggesting that chemtrails block access to higher states of consciousness or spiritual awakening. For adherents, the patterns in the sky are not just physical, they are symbolic of a battle between forces of control and liberation on a cosmic level. Others tie chemtrails to advanced technology, like weather modification or energy weapons, that could be used in geopolitical warfare. These theorists suggest that chemtrails are laying the groundwork for space-based weapons systems or directed energy attacks, giving certain nations a devastating strategic advantage. Some point to the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, ARP, as a potential connection, claiming that the trails interact with electromagnetic fields to create effects ranging from earthquakes to hurricanes. Finally, there's the unsettling idea that chemtrails are not of human origin at all. In this view, the trails are part of a broader phenomenon involving unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and advanced craft that operate beyond our understanding. These theories suggest that what we see as planes may, in fact, be camouflaged alien ships conducting operations for purposes unknown. These speculative angles take the chemtrail theory into truly uncharted territory, where science, spirituality, and fiction blur. Whether or not you believe these ideas, they highlight the boundless creativity and curiosity that drive the human need to understand the unexplained. But as we reach the end of this journey, it's time to reflect on what we've explored and where this conversation might take us next. As we bring this episode of Conspiracy Theories and Cover-Ups to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the strange, compelling, and often mind-bending journey we've taken through the world of chemtrails. From their origins in the skies over our heads, to the array of theories about their purpose, climate control, military experiments, population management, and even extraterrestrial influence, it's clear that this topic resonates deeply with the human psyche. It taps into fears of manipulation, control, and secrecy, while also igniting our innate desire to understand the forces shaping our world. We began by examining how a seemingly innocuous phenomenon, contrails, evolved into a cornerstone of conspiracy culture. The rapid rise of the chemtrail theory, fueled by images, anecdotes, and a growing distrust of authority, highlights the power of perception in shaping belief. From there, we dove into the claims of those who insist that chemtrails are part of a deliberate, covert agenda, backed by compelling evidence like anomalous air samples, odd health effects, and patent records. We also explored the skeptics' perspectives and the scientific explanations that attempt to debunk these claims. While some counter-arguments challenge the validity of the chemtrail theory, they also underscore the deep divisions between mainstream narratives and those who question them. Whether it's a lack of transparency or the shadow of historical precedent, it's undeniable that the skepticism surrounding chemtrails exists for a reason. Beyond the claims and counterclaims, we examined why this conspiracy resonates so strongly. Culturally, it reflects our fears of unchecked authority, environmental degradation, and even our existential relationship with the natural world. Politically, it raises questions about the balance between security and transparency. Socially, it highlights the fragmentation of trust in institutions and the rise of alternative narratives fueled by digital connectivity. In our sixth segment, we ventured into the speculative fringes: mind control, extraterrestrial agendas, spiritual interference, and advanced weaponry. These theories, while unconventional, push the boundaries of imagination and remind us of humanity's deep-rooted curiosity about the unknown. They force us to consider not just what we know, but how we know it, and what possibilities exist outside the framework of accepted reality. So, what do you believe? Are chemtrails a misunderstood phenomenon, a product of mistrust and misinformation, or could they be the key to understanding one of the greatest secrets of our time? As always, the answers lie not in what we tell you, but in what you choose to believe and how you choose to question the world around you. Before we sign off, let's give you a teaser for next week's episode. We'll be diving into one of the most enduring and debated conspiracies of the 20th century, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Was it truly the act of a lone gunman, or is there more to the story than meets the eye? We'll explore the theories, the evidence, and the questions that remain unanswered. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform, share your thoughts and theories in the comments, and spread the word to fellow truth seekers. New episodes drop every Wednesday, so stay tuned for more deep dives into the mysteries they don't want you to uncover. Until next time, keep questioning everything, because the truth is often stranger than fiction.